Hello, this is Mrs. Collier. We are going to go over pages 92 through 95 of the Social Studies book. We'll be learning about ancient Greece. I'm going to show you how to pull into the book in case you don't remember how. You'll click on Student Online Access, and that gets you in the textbook or gives you the information to get in the textbook. So you'll click on the name of the textbook. You'll go down to grade 3. You can do it with audio or without. And audio will just means that it will read to you. And I'd already entered the password a few minutes ago. And the username is Tazwell S with a capital T and a capital S. And the password is 24651 capital S. So I'm going to go into the book. Now, when you're going into the book on your own, you can also go into the assignment by coming out of there with the arrow and clicking on copy of assignment and open it with Kami. That will then give you both tabs so that you can go back and forth while you are looking in the social studies book. Now, we don't have to turn every page. We can click on the table of contents, which is the blue circle in the left upper corner with the white lines. And that will open us up. We are on ancient Greece, and we are starting on page 92 today. So now, once you're in the book, you can use the slider here to enlarge it, and I'm going to do that. So at the top, it tells us the ancient Greeks made significant contributions to society in terms of architecture, government, and sports. The ancient Greeks have influenced the lives of people today. The lands of ancient Greece. Now I'm going to go over here and pay attention to words to know, because the questions that you have to answer can be under words to know, they can be in the text, they can be in a picture caption. So you have to look at everything so that you can find your answers. So words to know, we have the word peninsula. A peninsula is a piece of land that sticks out into a body of water and is surrounded by water on 3 sides. We also have column. A column is a tall, cylinder-shaped pillar used to support a roof. So now if we go back up here, we have this picture and we have columns that were used to support the roof. Let's go ahead and start reading. It says, the land of ancient Greece spreads across a group of islands and peninsulas in the Mediterranean Sea. The Greek islands were formed when huge volcanoes exploded thousands of years ago, spewing lava everywhere. Now, that couple of sentences will answer a couple of questions on your paper, so I hope you paid close attention to that. These islands are very rocky and rugged, with rugged mountains, but the ancient Greeks put these rocks to good use by cutting them into into blocks and columns. They then began to build some of the most amazing structures in the world. And we have the heading Beautiful Buildings. As Greek civilizations grew more powerful, people began to build huge temples to honor their many gods. Greek temples used tall, thick columns placed in long rows to hold up big roofs. Thousands of years after the temples were built, many are still standing. I'll go over to the other page. Okay, and this picture that we had here where I pointed out the columns, here's the caption. As the moon rises over Athens, the Parthenon is bathed in golden light. Look at the many columns the architects used in the construction of this building. So there's a lot of columns here, and that's how they held up the massive roofs. And it told us that they made the columns by cutting out the rock of their mountains. It says the islands were very rocky and rugged mountains, but they put the rocks to good use by cutting them into blocks and columns. So here we have like a map. We have the Mediterranean Sea and modern Greece. It says, can you see all the peninsulas and islands? Remember, peninsulas are surrounded by water on three sides, and islands are surrounded by water on all sides. So we have a little peninsula, a little peninsula, a little peninsula, and then we have an island, an island, an island. So how do you think this geography affected the life of ancient Greece? Well, they were separated because everything was not connected. They had a lot of water. So we'll just have to continue reading to see how that affected their life. It says the Parthenon, symbol of Greece. The Parthenon is one of the most famous buildings on earth. It was built more than 2,400 years ago as a temple to honor Athena, the goddess of wisdom. It sits on a high, flat-topped hill in Athens, Greece, in an area called the Acropolis, which means upper city. Over the centuries, it was used as a treasury, a church, a mosque, and unfortunately, in the 1600s, as an ammunition dump. It was hit by enemy fire, and the explosion left the beautiful building in ruins. So, when we look at this picture and we see how it is one of the most famous buildings on earth, and some of you might be thinking, well, it's not in good shape and it looks awful, and that's because they used it to store ammunition, and when it was hit, that destroyed a large majority of the building. Then we have a caption. It says, many American buildings have been inspired by Greek architecture. The picture on the left, this one, shows America's Supreme Court. Our penny shows the Lincoln Memorial, which also has columns. So the Supreme Court building has columns, the Lincoln Memorial has columns, and the columns came from Greek architecture. I'm going to turn the page. I'm going to zoom back in. It says from art to sports, gifts from the Greeks. The Greeks loved art. They decorated their buildings with beautiful carvings and fancy trim. They could take hard stone and carve it into sculptures that looked almost human. Thousands of years of wear have taken a toll, but these works of art are still beautiful. And we have a subheading, more than just jars and bowls. The ancient Greeks were also wonderful storytellers. They created fantastic myths, stories of gods and humans to teach life lessons. Using these stories as inspiration, artists decorated beautiful clay pottery and bowls. Not only were these useful for storing olive oil and wine, they reminded Greek citizens about the pitfalls of vanity, envy, and too much ambition. Sculptures honored famous citizens and mythic heroes as well as the Greek gods. So it talks about vanity, envy, and too much ambition. So if someone is vain or has a lot of vanity, we might notice that they look in the mirror a lot and they're constantly worried about their looks, and that is vanity. When someone is envious, they're usually jealous of something else someone else can do or has. And then too much ambition. We all need ambition to get things done, but if we have too much, it can consume us to where that's all we think about is achieving a certain goal, and we're not really living the rest of life. And so they use their art to remind people that that wasn't important. They were pitfalls, that we had to have moderation in everything. And it says ancient Greek buildings were often decorated with glorious sculptures. And then we have a building here that has a sculpture on it. Over to the other page. I'm going to start here in the kind of purple that has the heading, the Olympics today. Every 4 years, athletes from around the world gather to compete in dozens of sports. Our modern Olympics are modeled after the games of ancient Greece. So here we have a picture, and it says an ancient Greek arena. So you have where the athletes would be down here in the center, and then you have where people would have sat to watch up here around the sides. It says the first modern Olympics were held in 1896 in Athens. Today's athletes hope for gold medals, but those first winners simply got crowns made from olive branches. In 2004, the world came to Greece once more for a modern Olympics. Some events were even held at the ancient sites. We have a photograph. It says Michael Phelps, an American swimmer, has won the most gold medals of any modern day Olympian, and he has an olive branch crown on as well. Let's read the text here in the center. First, we'll look at this picture. It says a foot race with runners in full armor was one of the Olympics events in ancient times. The prize, a crown of olive branches. So now if you watch the Olympics and you watch the runners, they're going to have on shorts that are, pretty short. They're going to have on tank tops. They're going to have on very little clothing. Their shoes are going to be high-tech, very lightweight shoes so that they can run quicker. And now that's what we do. But then they would run in full armor as though they were going to battle for each race. So that would have changed things very much. Look here at the little metal pieces they would have had formed around the front of their legs from their knees down. I ran track back in high school, and I can't imagine having something like that on my legs while I was running. So it changed the way the runners trained, and it would have been very different compared to how we run. They might would have thought today's races were easier. I don't know. Going for the gold. Are you an athlete? The word comes from the Greek word athlos, which means contest. The ancient Greeks gave us one of the best contests in the world, the Olympics. It all began in 776 BCE, before Common Era, when a group of swift runners went to a place called Olympia as part of a religious celebration. Over the next 900 years, the number of events grew from a single foot race to include many other sports. Then we have the birth of a marathon. So a marathon is a little over 26 miles. The one I'm most familiar with hearing about is the Boston Marathon. It's ran in the Boston area. They run this little bit over 26 miles, and it takes, most people about 2 to 3 hours. Now, it would take me longer than that. I don't know how long it would take you guys. So let's read. Another Greek tradition is a 26.2-mile long foot race. It began in wartime with the Greeks under attack by a huge army of soldiers from Persia. Somehow, even though they were outnumbered 4-1, the Greeks won the Battle of Marathon. A young soldier ran over 20 miles from the town of Marathon to the city of Athens to bring news of victory as well as warning of more attacks. Today there are more marathons or mini marathons all over the world, and thousands of people run for the thrill of it. So the first marathon, it was a city, and the Greeks had won the battle of that city, the Battle of Marathon. So then the soldier ran the over 20 miles to get to Athens from Marathon, and that's how a marathon was named. So if you will look on all the parts of the pages, I've read all of them, but if you'll go back and look in your captions, your words to know, all of that, you will easily find your answers to your questions that you are assigned today. Thank you.